another silent video set to some Dan Celia. This is a hike up to Blueberry Hill. And then when I'm done, I'm going to get some blueberry cuttings from some wild blueberries. Probably like a mile or two. Not 100% sure where the hill is. It's got some deer stands on it. It stands out. Can never have enough sources of food when food prices are getting ready to skyrocket. Oh, next year, 2022. Kind of later than like rotting on the shipping containers. You know, there were a lot of apples that rotted up in Washington a few years back because of a strike on the dock workers unions over there in the ports of Tacoma, Seattle. So, like, some apple growers just letting their things rot in the trees, not even bothering to pick them because it just costs them money. So there'll be instances like that, and also like what Dan Celia is going to be talking about, lack of fertilizers and lack of pesticides, or just being too expensive. And like with modern farming, it requires yearly applications, like what they're talking about. You know, your organic produce will still be there, but that's not going to feed the masses. So it'll be like skyrocketing prices. China has a lot of US dollars, which will be devaluing really quickly. And they need to buy food, you know, to feed their population. So they'll pay these exorbitant prices. So it's going to get to be a, you know, looking at the, you know, what we're seeing now are the precursors for some nice, oh, Jack Dorsey just said, you know, we're in, and I actually agree with Dorsey on this, that we're now in the age of hyperinflation. And here it is, like, food is more expensive, but because of government subsidies, still relatively cheap. But that's about to change, I think, coming up. You know, so Celia points out some of the things, you know, so it's out there, you know. But I don't need blueberries, you know. I'm gonna do, there's I don't know, a couple hundred plants, low bush blueberries, wild ones that grow out on this hill. I'm going to do probably a couple hundred cuttings. I got some scissors, I got a Ziploc with some wet paper towel in it. Some kitchen shears for scissors. So I'm just going to cut them. Probably like 100 little branches, you know. Something like this. This would be off camera that I do it. This is just going to be a hiking video, not a harvesting blueberry twig video. I'm probably going to pick about 100, maybe more. Fill up my Ziploc bag as much as I can. 1 gallon Ziploc. And then hopefully, I got, you know, old rooting hormone that's like 4 or 5 years old now. You know, again, when I tried picking up rooting hormone this year, they had stopped selling it, you know. So I'm using some old rooting hormone this time, which will hopefully work. I would have liked some fresh stuff, but all I got is the old. So maybe out of these 100 or 200 branches, I'll be able to get what do you call it? $50 to $100 that survive, you know, maybe like a 50% success rate. Bald eagle. This is the mud flats to Poop Lagoon. I was gonna see if I could do the mud flats, but it looks like the water level's actually risen. So I'm gonna go through the woods. Maybe see this bald eagle. I don't think I'm gonna get a view of the eagle though. Sink in. Okay, not bad at all. Okay. You never know. Like, sometimes you just sink in 12 inches. I was only sinking in a few inches. Some raccoon tracks. I don't point them out, but there's always a lot of raccoon traps down here. And this is where I'll be setting my raccoon body grip traps for catching raccoons. Not this particular spot, but along the shore. I think that was a heron. Oh wow, got some pelicans. You never see pelicans out here. Some white pelicans. I missed it. Those are pelicans. That's crazy. First pelicans I've seen. Oh, people, what the? Oh, gee. They're way over there. They're at. Let's see if I can get a quick look at this bald eagle. Yeah, food's gonna be getting pretty expensive. It's coming here, so it can't hurt. Nice sized turtle, but he's getting away. The eagle usually sits on those trees. Not seeing it though. It's too easy to get distracted. Maybe that's the one. I could hear him earlier. See if he's in here. Probably not now because of the water level. Over there's where those carp were going into the shore when I was kicking for carp. Took the kayak around this way.
Mr. Dan. I don't know if you remember or not, but I'm in the fertilizer business, and I've been meaning to call you for the last couple of weeks and kind of let you know what's going on, but it seems like a good day now that I heard Craig talking about some stuff, Mr. Craig.
Yep.
And, I think he said that urea was up 60-something% over the last 12 months, potash 80,
Yep.
phosphorus 70, and on a national level, I'll put it this way: in South Georgia, in my area, urea is up about 120%,
Holy
and
man.
potash is up about 110%. Phosphorus is right around where he said the national is around 70 or 80. We're pretty close to the phosphate mines in Florida, but he didn't say it. He didn't say it this way, but phosphorus is up there too because of the lack of supply, from China. I know you understand that better than anybody, the trickle down effect it has. But
So can I ask you? Let me ask you a
go
question,
ahead.
Wes.
Go ahead.
Are you hearing? I mean, you're close to this, obviously, and your livelihood depends upon supplies. Are you hearing anything like? Obviously, prices are up. One of the reasons prices are up is to try to slow down demand a little bit. Are supplies? Are they concerning? Are they concerning the manufacturers, the guys that are putting this out? Are supplies of the raw materials starting to get concerning?
The main issue from the supply standpoint is getting the product where it needs to go. The transit, the truck,
yeah, right. The trucking, I forgot.
freight. That's the main. And there has been, different shutdowns and things. That the hurricanes in Louisiana shut down a Bayer, which is a Bayer facility, which creates Roundup, and so there's a big Roundup shortage right now, which is huge. And to answer your question, you asked Craig about yield, yield reduction. To the farms that have a really good soil type, that farmers been taking care of them, you can get by for a little while on phosphorus and potassium. I mean, you can grow peanuts and maybe even soybeans for a little while and make a decent yield. But corn, wheat, cotton, it has to have nitrogen every year. That's what urea brings in nitrogen, and the ammonium nitrate's high too. The liquid-based fertilizers are high. They're not going up as fast as the urea. I'll put it this way: urea went up 20% from last Thursday to last Friday. In one day, it went up 20%.
So
they told us.
Is that going to keep some farmers from? I mean, are they going to cut back? And I think I was trying to get to the root of yield dropping, and I was saying, these high prices. I mean, obviously, I know the smaller operations will likely cut back, but how about some of the big operations? What happens if they're not getting the prices on the end, the commodity prices for their corn and the wheat and all those kinds of things? Are they going to have to cut back on some of these fertilizers, which is going to obviously cut back on the yield, I guess, right?
Well, Mr. Dan, it's like anything else. The big ones can. The trajectory we're on, the big ones are going to be affected too. Don't get me wrong, but it's really hurting. A lot of these smaller guys, they're borrowing their money to make one crop, and they get paid once they sell that crop to pay back. Well, the big guys are able that have got money put away. They're able to get what they need: lime, fertilizer, different chemicals. To go ahead and stock up now. The smaller guys that can't afford to do that are waiting to get their crop in. They're going to get hurt worse, because they don't have the capital to get ahead of the game. But it's going to hurt. If we continue on this trajectory we're on, that Craig believes we're on until next spring, through next spring, and then who knows how long, it's going to hurt everybody. And because everybody's having to pay the high. I mean, the commodities are up, but like you said several months ago, that's the best way to know inflation's coming. Wheat went up about a year and a half, 2 years ago, when wheat jumped up so much, and then everything else that followed behind it. Fuel's up, finding labor's up, hiring labor. Finding labor's hard to do. Hiring labor's up, equipment's up. Getting the equipment in a timely manner is hard to do. You know, it's behind everything.
Yeah.
I don't want to. I don't mean to alarm. I don't mean to.
No,
scare people,
I know.
but,
I know. You're just telling us, answering the, telling us
well,
the
what
reason.
what I'm saying, what I want to say is this: you've got to. We're in a society now where the majority of our population lives in urban areas, and they're very far removed from where their food actually comes from. You know, it doesn't matter what kind of ideology you have, you got to eat. Whether
Yeah.
you're a vegetarian or a vegan or you eat nothing but steak, you got to eat or you die. And
Yeah.
we are, this is, and we produce, and these, you know, the left wants to give all this stuff to the rest of the world. The best thing that America can do for the rest of the world is to keep our farmers in a favorable economic environment where they can continue to produce crops and be sustainable, because the United States exports more food. You know, if American agriculture shut down 1 year, the whole world starts to down. You know,
Yeah, that's right.
and so I don't know, man. I don't mean to be the bearer of bad news, but it's
That's
a
why I
very
asked you.
trying time.
That's why I asked you to. You know, there's nothing better for me, Wes, than to talk to somebody that has their ear to the street. I mean, you're on the street. You have your ear to the street. You're talking to these people and dealing with it every day, and you know, it's always the best kind of confirming information. And I was talking this morning, and I was talking yesterday. You know, I'm concerned about 2 years from now, famine and what is going to happen. And I'll tell you, the trucking problem is not going to get any better in the next 12 months. Isn't going to happen. Last week, we had 45 ships outside the largest port in America, in Southern California, anchored offshore. Today, there's just over 100 ships. Until we can get some trucks to move the containers, this is going to just pile up, and the bottlenecks are getting bigger and bigger. It's a huge problem, and I'm telling you, we're going to be paying $6 for 3 apples in no time. I mean, it's going to get to that point, and this is the permanent inflation that I've been talking about. You know, I don't care what the Federal Reserve says or what the government is saying. All I know is it's taken a lot of money to get the food that we eat to the market, not to mention the cost of the food itself. And as long as that keeps happening, and it's going to keep happening, we are going to see dramatic inflation. It's got to continue. It's got to continue, or we starve. And then we face the problem of being able to afford and have the money to buy the food. And then we're going to face government stepping in and putting price controls in, like they did in 1928, 29, coming in and saying, I don't care what it's costing you. You can't charge more than this, and we will do our best in the government to subsidize you so that you can afford to pay that lower price, because people can't afford to buy it. I mean, that's where we're headed, and we're headed to famine. Wes, thank you, man. I appreciate you, brother. Thank you for calling and weighing in. Yep, I wish you all the best, man. All right.
You know, so I know what we can do.
Thank you.
You know, I heard Craig in that first segment of the second hour, and he was saying that he wasn't smart enough to figure out how all the fertilizer and stuff works. And that's why he became an analyst. And it reminded me of what those comments that Michael Bloomberg made, 5 years ago. So maybe when all of this, comes to a head, we can just bring him back in, because, he apparently we don't need fertilizer. He says it's just a process. You dig a hole, put a seed in it, put dirt on top, add water, and up comes the corn. So
that has haunted him, and it should have, and it's going to continue to haunt him. So thank you for continuing to haunt. I hope you were listening, Mike. Anyway, I know he wasn't. But yeah, I mean, it was it wasn't a dumb statement. It was a typical statement of somebody that's lived in this bubble all his life and has no clue. It goes to exactly what Wes said. People in these cities and urban areas, they're so far removed in their little bubble, they have no idea. All they know is they go to the grocery store and the string beans just show up, and they take them home. I mean, really, and that's the Michael Bloomberg mentality. But yeah. All right.
I encourage people to try it themselves. We've had a garden for 2 years, and it's not as easy as it looks.
Well, I tell my son-in-law he's going to have to feed our family because he's the farmer in the house, and he loves he belongs to seed clubs and all. I mean, he grafts stuff in and mixed breed. So he's going to feed us, so I don't have to worry about it. Because if it's up to Yvonne and I, we're in big trouble. All right, we'll be back.
I just had a couple of questions. I don't know if this is kind of a kooky thing that I heard that's kind of maybe out there, but one was I heard the Federal Reserve was thinking about going to a digital currency. Is this true?
Yeah, well, it's not really. So we will have what they are calling a stable currency. It is a form of a digital currency. It is not a digital currency like we would consider it, like a Bitcoin or something like that. It's not that at all. It is a central bank, a sovereign nation's central bank digital currency that they are calling a stable currency. Now, I don't think the Federal Reserve, though Janet Yellen, the Treasury Department is where it really came from. Janet Yellen is talking about the notion of it is for other countries to buy into it, which is going to happen. It is the beginning of a global currency. And back in 2009, I say this all the time, I wrote a paper about the one world currency ushering in the one world government. That's what I believe. That's not biblical. It doesn't say that. The one world government is, obviously. But I believe it's a one world currency that is going to usher that in. And we will have a one world currency in short order. And so I've always believed, and I still kind of do, that it's going to come from the IMF. The IMF has been pushing for this since 2006. And I think that that's where it's going to come from. So the stable currency that the Federal Reserve is a form of digital currency, but it's digital currency with accountability. And I've always said, when people have asked me about Bitcoin, yeah, we're going to have a digital currency probably some point in time. I don't like it, but we will. But it's not going to be a Bitcoin because no taxing organization in any sovereign nation that is collecting taxes wants to see a Bitcoin-like thing where they don't have any idea how much money people have or make because they can't trace it. So it's just not even logical to think that a Bitcoin is going to be the currency. It's impossible. The IRS there wouldn't be an IRS and there wouldn't be any taxes to collect. So it's going to be it's going to be a currency that if you own the U.S. stable currency and that's what you are buying and using and getting paid in, it's not going to be any different than the dollar. The only difference is it's going to be able to very easily be manipulated. And that is what a one world government is going to need. And if they do come out with a stable currency, and the likes of Germany and Italy and France, those three for sure, the three largest economies, one of those in the Eurozone don't buy into it, and they say we are going to use an IMF currency, and we're going to have Germany, Italy, and all of the Eurozone in it, and we're going to tell the U.S., we want you to come into that, then under this administration, we will do it in a heartbeat, and we will just be a part of that global currency. And I think that's as likely as a stable currency. So yes, it's called a stable currency. You will hear it in the news. You will hear it drop very matter-of-factly by the Federal Reserve and Janet Yellen. She started dropping it in February, the first time I called her out on it. And so we're going to start hearing
she forgets she's not part of the Fed anymore.
Yeah, she doesn't understand that. And it's a shame, poor thing. But she is the globalist of globalists. Caught me by surprise, to be honest with you. I always knew she was a radical liberal, but I didn't know that she was also a globalist. She never talked like that under other administrations, but now she's free to do that. So that's what she's talking about, and that's what they're talking about when they say a digital currency. But our minds go to Bitcoin when we hear that, and it's not going to be anything else.
And to fit in with the end time prophecy and the one world government and the not being able to buy or sell, currency is going to have to be something that's uniform, and it's going to have to be something that can be turned on and off easily.
Yes, and that's what I meant by the manipulation. It's gotta be that. Think about controlling an entire economy with the flip of a switch, changing the entire economy because you can turn a dial and slow down the free flow of cash, of money, whatever form it's in, of currency, slowing that down or increasing it at the turn of a dial. It's not just now you're not controlling the United States, you're controlling the entire developed world, those that are in that. There are countries like Saudi Arabia, like Russia. Russia could go into it because they're in bankruptcy, but Saudi Arabia, Norway, Sweden, Switzerland, Singapore, likely New Zealand. I'm just thinking. They're not going to go into it. They'll probably tell everybody they'll just have to sit it out. I doubt that they will go do that, but we probably won't. We will probably do it.
Oh, that's scary.
So that's what
Very scary.
It is very scary. No, it is very scary. But it is going to be. I should be talking more about it because it makes my paper that has been published widely. I think it was published 4 times back in 2009. It makes me look really smart. So I should probably write a book and make $1 million or something, or 1 million Bitcoin or whatever it is. But
and then you can quit promoting the news.
And then right.
No, don't do that.
But that's where it's going, Lynn, and it is part of the one world currency, and we are so blessed because we know we know the end of the story. So,
We win
no matter what, and that's how it's going to get. That's how it's going to get here. That's all. So we'll pay attention. So I keep paying attention. I'm glad you are. Keep paying attention to this stable currency that we're going to start hearing a whole lot about over the next year.
I had a second question. I don't know if we have time
Go
for
ahead,
it, but it was about okay, I guess you could try to squeeze it in, but
Yep.
the new provision they're trying to ram into that whatever trillion, I don't know if it's 3.5 now or 1 something trillion dollar proposal or law. It's a new revision to change the $10,000 reporting to $600 reporting.
That's pretty much a done deal, Lynn. Basically it is just changing. It's not a number on amounts or anything. It's really building to the financial tax, the financial transaction tax. So the way they're building to that is the first thing they have to do is develop the system to recognize every financial transaction. So that's what it's leading up to. Now, I just want, for the record, I'm the only one saying that. So I'm really in the minority, and so I'll assume that I'm wrong. I don't think I will be, but I think I could be wrong. So my theory is that that's already done. The reason they're doing it is to get a handle on the transactions that are happening in the country, and then they will determine and be able to quantify the new fee or tax on financial transaction and be able to pick and choose which ones they want to put it on. So they will see if they can eliminate the ones that will be least politically radioactive. So they won't include those. So people won't raise as big a fuss. So that's what all this is leading up to. So yes, the transaction, everything's getting reported, and the government's going to know about every single thing that we do from a financial. That includes writing checks and depositing checks, including using a credit card, a debit card,
PayPal, Venmo.
PayPals, and all of the electronic uses. Absolutely. Yep. One of the things that's concerning me are some of the unintended consequence of what we're not doing with energy and what's not happening. You know, this effort to shut down all the carbon emissions is really now starting to create some problems. So we have CO2, major CO2 shortages in the UK and throughout the Eurozone now. That is translating over to shortages and problems with fertilizers. And the fertilizers are going to get more and more expensive. So in my opinion, some of the smaller operations over there may be cutting back a little bit. Yields could get hurt. And, you know, we could have another crisis on our hands. And I'm wondering, I guess, if I am overworking my imagination a little bit on some of that.
I think, if anything, you're underworking it.
Okay.
This week we had two fertilizer manufacturers in the UK shut down as a result of the high natural gas price. So your instincts are dead on right. But I think even more frightening to me was the announcement from China that apparently they're going to ban the exports of phosphate through 2022. Now, China makes up 30% of the world phosphate trade. Of course, that's a key component in commercial fertilizer. Probably ends up going on about 300 million acres of U.S. cropland every year, as well as being extraordinarily important around the world. Our advice to producers has been that if you can get the fertilizer and you can store it on farm this fall, please do so, because I think that this shortage is going to probably continue through next spring. I think that the skew in prices is going to continue through next spring at least. I mean, for your listeners that aren't following it, just looking at year-over-year increases, urea is up 62% from where we were a year ago, anhydrous up 82%, potash is trading 85% higher than it was a year ago. So we've seen some remarkable increases in prices, and with the news coming out of China, there's some thought that urea will be the next thing that they restrict as well. And so I don't look for that to change anytime soon. And to your point, I think the unintended consequences could be obviously decrease in productivity, and that would have ripple effects throughout the entire world, obviously.
You know, nat gas prices up yesterday 500% in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just, and we're coming on to cold weather as well, you know, so.
Correct, yeah.
I mean, all of this, and I didn't know that the phosphates, I didn't know China was 30%. I think Canada's most of our potash comes from Canada, right?
Right. The biggest impact probably on the Chinese news is going to be in Australia.
Okay.
It'll have some effect, but anytime, as you know, you start restricting it, and it's going to flow to whoever's going to pay up for it. So I do think we saw struggles this year with the supply chain, and this is going to just be exacerbated in the coming year, I'm afraid.
This is a very ignorant question from somebody that can't grow a houseplant. What is the impact of fertilizer, maybe even just a dumb question, on yield? I mean, obviously it's got to have some impact on yield. Is it dramatic? Would yield? Let's just say we went back to the, went back 40 years and we had farmers farming without some of the pesticides and fertilizers. Would yields be dramatically changed?
I think they would, and my caveat is that I wasn't smart enough to be an agronomist, so I became a commodity guy. So I'm probably the last guy that you want to ask. Right. But I do know that there would definitely be a yield drag. Now, what I don't know is how rapidly that would happen. We've over the years, it's the guys that have done a good job of building up the soils and doing the fertilizer. There's probably some more, that can be mined out of that field. But I think initially you would see somewhat of a decrease, and certainly the longer the problem continued, the greater the magnitude of the decrease would be. But I've had just enough economy classes to be ignorantly dangerous. But so I don't know how to quantify that, but definitely you would see a decrease. And at a point, as tight as world supplies are, I mean, I think would reach a tipping point where you could not feed the world without utilizing the fertilizers.
So because of the way I always extrapolate things out, that means that a fertilizer, just this alone, in years to come, if it doesn't happen sooner, you can count on the UK falling to Russia again and be gone. They need the UK desperately anyway, from a breadbasket perspective, and they need it. But this could start wars from in some of these areas. Now we don't have an administration that desires to protect the UK or Poland or some of the other countries. Or ourselves for that matter. Yeah, good point. Yeah, good point. So, when you think of the consequence of this is all, it all goes back to, and will be able someday to be traced back to this absolutely, rabid perspective on getting rid of carbon fuels. And, when we see a president of the United States asking Russia and the OPEC to increase production instead of calling up CEOs of our major oil companies and say, hey, man, we got all we need. Let's do it. What do we got to do? It's just horrifying to me that we would do that all for the sake of trying to appease a left to keep it off our shores. We don't want it, as if it's not going to come here anyway.
Right.
It is just insane and very, very concerning.
Well, I would agree. I think it's extraordinarily short-sighted. We've never really known hunger to a large degree in this nation. We've been very blessed in that regard.
Yep.
But my fear is that we're closer to it than the average person would want to believe, unfortunately.
Amen. Yeah, we are. Craig Hauger. Craig, we at Financial Issues, our listeners appreciate you so much. And we are so grateful that you come alongside. I mean, it is just, we are in scary times. We are no doubt in end times. We are no doubt watching the darkness of this world raising up a frenzy kind of energy until God puts his hand out and stops it all. But raising up so much of what is happening here, raising up a White House that is demonic. That is demonic. Don't email me, please, about that, because I get them every day. I know what I'm saying. I understand what I'm saying. And I really don't care if it offends anybody, but you don't need to remind me of some things that you believe I have forgotten. But listen, man alone, without a spiritual influence, does not have the abilities to do what has happened so quickly to America. And remember that all spiritual activity is not of God by any stretch of the imagination. Adolf Hitler wouldn't have done what he did if it wasn't for the demonic power that was ruling over him and those people. And I believe we have a spirit of the same kind of demonic power today.
Oh, blueberries. Probably 100 yards that way.